here feels like they have a really good understanding what the blue zones are, or says watch the Netflix documentary, any of that? Excellent. You guys are going to contribute a lot then, right? So the blue zones. Researchers basically were kind of looking at longevity, trying to better understand it. And so they found 5 different regions of the world where people were living on average somewhere between 7 to 10 years longer than everybody else. And they wanted to look and say, what are these cultures doing differently that allows them to live a longer and healthier life? What they found is that about 80% of how long we live is dictated by lifestyle and environment, which was a little bit different than what they'd initially expected. And only about 20 to 25% was dictated by genes. These are the 5 blue zones, and we'll talk a little bit about each of them and kind of what's unique about their cultures. So you've got Icaria, Greece, Okinawa, Japan, Loma, California, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Sardinia, Italy. First off is Icaria, Greece. So I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but it is a small island in Greece, pretty small population of people. They have the greatest adherence to the Mediterranean diet of anyone in the world, or of any group in the world. They have a diet very rich in red wine. Most of the families there have their own homegrown garden, so they are eating a lot of fresh vegetables, and they love herbal tea, which I have in common with them. They have a very relaxed pace of life. They mostly ignore clocks. They take regular naps, which I think we should all key in on personally. And they live in a pretty rugged terrain. So you can see they're constantly walking up and down steps. It's kind of on a mountainous island. Next up is Okinawa, Japan. This one was one of my favorite little communities. This is home to the world's longest living women. And they have something called moya, which is at a very young age, about 4 to 5 girls will commit to a lifelong friendship. And they will meet every day or every couple of days and have lunch together, share advice. They rely on each other for financial support. And if one of them does not show up to their meeting, then the other 4 go and find them and figure out what's going on. Kind of cool. They garden daily and they walk often. And then they have a strong sense of, not sure I'm saying this right, but ikigai, which is a purpose in life or reason for living. And this is a word that they kind of live by. What is your purpose? Next up is Loma, California, which is home to a lot of Seventh-day Adventists. So some unique characteristics of this group: they do not consume alcohol or tobacco products. They have a weekly break, so they have a dedicated time set aside called the Sabbath. They are mostly vegetarians, though I think, I could be wrong, they might have meat like every 5th Sunday or something like that. They might be complete vegetarians. They volunteer regularly, and they spend a lot of time with like-minded friends and doing low-impact exercise. Nicoya, Costa Rica, again, something called Plan de Vida. What is their reason to live? This is something that they live by and a strong part of their culture. They have multi-generational homes. So they have grandparents living with younger children, and they've actually found that increases the lifespan of the young children to live with grandparents, which was pretty interesting. They have very regular visits from neighbors, so they're tight-knit communities. They have a lot of time in the sunshine. They eat very light dinners. Most of their meals are bigger and earlier in the morning, and then lighter as the day goes on. They do a lot of physical work, and they actually found that they drink hard water that is very rich in calcium, so the people here have way lower rates of osteoporosis and osteopenia. And then last up is Sardinia, Italy, which is home to the longest living men. This group is primarily mountain sheep herders or farmers. So again, they're spending a lot of time in mountainous terrain. They walk an average of about 5 miles a day. They are pretty culturally isolated, which makes them a good group to study. But it also means that they harvest a lot of their food on their own. So they hunt, they fish, they do a lot of farming. They have a very strong sense of family. So every member in the family is very well cared for, and elders are respected very highly in this community. And then they have something called Sardinia comedy, I think it was, where they laugh a lot more than the average person in this community. So, what commonalities do you see between these cultures? This is where I'm going to depend on you guys a lot. Randa.
I noticed 4 things. So it seemed like purpose, community, diet, and movement were like on all of your slides.
Yep, I love it. Those are, I think, yeah, good. Anything else?
Seems like they really forge strong social bonds, whether it's with friends or family. I noticed that in every single group.
Yep, yeah, really strong sense of community.
Doesn't seem like they eat McDonald's much.
Excellent, yeah, I don't think any of them have very good access to McDonald's.
Or processed.
Yes.
There's kind of a natural pace to life and
Yes.
relationships. It's not. I like the idea of there's no the one group that doesn't pay attention to clocks.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of. I almost can't imagine a life like that anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost foreign.
They kind of just live by the clock of nature.
Even the descriptions you give feel a little lower stress.
Oh, excellent. That's what you were going for. Yeah, yeah. Who doesn't want to live in one of these communities? Anything else?
One other one was the size of the communities. You didn't really say exactly, but it didn't seem like these were huge populations.
Yeah.
But they weren't tiny either. They were kind of in the middle, so where it was a large enough community to have a lot of probably interesting ideas and things, but also you may know everybody within the community and
Yep.
feel connected.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things that stood out to me is these, are these things, is it possible to grow this to a bigger scale, or how do you build this in a smaller community and then expand from there?
I was wondering whether isolation was a key aspect to its longevity, or was that more in the study of the cultures themselves? Was it more a scientific reasoning? If it's better to be isolated, or if it's just by natural.
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
I think Loma Linda's not isolated.
Yeah, I think that one is kind of the one that stands out from the rest of these, right? Some of them are in islands or kind of these isolated mountainous, but Loma Linda is not, and they're kind of doing the same things. There's hope for us. Yes.
The only other thing in relation to that is probably like electronics and like access to internet.
Yep.
Probably, I don't know if you came across that, but I guess Italy would be the only one where they had like maybe more access to like outside electronics.
Yeah, that one was actually one that was not mentioned a lot by the researchers, in part because I think this was all done in like 2009, 2010, but none of these communities had a ton of access to internet, except for, again, maybe Loma Linda. Yes?
You talked about their livelihoods, like what they did for work and that kind of thing. And I saw a common thread that all of their livelihoods seem to go towards things that support living. Like there was farming, or I'm sure there are cobblers and people who make things, but that support the community, and not I don't know, not like shoveling paper or administrative type of things. Like
it kind of has this.
Their livelihoods seem to be tied to actually helping the community.
Yeah, it's a very direct impact on their own health and on their community's health. Yeah, good. Anything else?
I mean, it's already been mentioned, but it's interesting when as you just went through each of those communities, how even in different ways, they celebrated each other and this meaningful connection that really drove them. Whether it was Okinawa, with the 5 women together, or just celebrating elders or multi-generational homes.
Yeah.
That sense of community, and that's something that's I think sometimes we overlook, but clearly not in this studies. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think they all have a very, like, they feel important, like their community needs them.
Yeah, I think one slide even mentioned that they have a powerful meaning in life. This gives that meaning.
Yeah.
I think we miss that a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else? Love it. So the researchers kind of looked at each of these communities, tried to compare them. I think I was a little surprised at what they came up with, but they called it the Power 9. So these are the Power 9. One was that they move naturally, which you kind of spoke about. Movement is built into their everyday lives, into what they do for work. They don't have to go to work and then come home and find a slice of time to work out. This is just what they do for their livelihood. Purpose. They have a very strong sense of purpose, and a lot of the communities actually had a specific word for it. They have something called downshift, where they all had different rituals which helped them to de-stress. Some of those were having a glass of wine at lunch with their girlfriends. Some of it was the Sabbath, but they set aside very specific times to de-stress. 80% rule. So a lot of these cultures kind of lived by the 80% rule, where they would only eat until they were 80% full, not 100% full. They have what they call the plant slant. Again, we spoke. You mentioned this, that a lot of their diet is plant-based and kind of cultivated by themselves. They had something called wine at 5. I think we've mostly debunked the idea that wine is good for you, which I'm kind of sad about. But most of them drank 1 to 2 glasses of wine with friends and family. As they've kind of evaluated why they thought this was initially a factor, it was that they were getting together in a social situation with friends and family, and again, it was tied to that ability to de-stress. And then they pretty much all belong to a faith-based community, so again, that sense of belonging and community was really important. And then they put their loved ones first, and they had that sense of the right tribe. These are all people that have the same goals. Our behaviors are contagious. And so if you live in a community with healthy behaviors, then you're going to more likely also exhibit those healthy behaviors. When I looked at it, these were the things that kind of stood out to me. They have a very intimate relationship with their food, and they're actively involved in cultivating it. This is something we do not do at all in our society. I can't even tell you where my breakfast came from this morning. They move naturally throughout their day, and they don't have to find time to exercise. Exercise isn't really in their vocabulary, it's just what they do. And then they have a deep sense of purpose and community, which you spoke to. So, how do we reinvent the wheel to include natural movement in our workplaces? A lot of people here are in charge of their workplaces. How can we change our workplace to reflect this better?
So I did a really intense, if anyone's ever seen the McDonald's, what's it called, the Founder?
The Founder.
You know, they have the tennis court, and they figure out how to minimize movement to be able to be more efficient with their roles. So it's really cool how they figured this out. They drew the cooker, right? And they figured out how to have the least amount of steps, the least amount of movement within a certain space. So I watched that movie and I'm like, I gotta do that in the clinic. How can I minimize steps? I know.
Yeah, in our society, everything gravitates towards the opposite.
But the idea was to spend more time with patients. How do I spend more time with patients, less time moving around the clinic? But it's interesting now to hear this, because I'm like, well, that's not helping.
Yeah, right?
And I also think about retirement too. Retirement is very different here in the U.S. What do we do? People are not, they exercise for their job maybe.
Yeah.
And now these baby boomers are getting to the older age. They're like, well, what do I do?
Yep.
I don't know how to exercise. I don't know how to.
They've never done it. Yeah.
Engage in my community, so.
Yeah, I like that comment. Don't do that.
Say that they have no emphasis on efficiency.
Yes. Yeah, it goes back to that slow-paced life. They just kind of, they live by the nature of time.
Well, I ditched my desk years ago and just got a treadmill desk, and then you go from a job of bedside nursing where that's there's not a lot of efficiency in that. You're running up and down the halls and getting tons of steps in every day, to more administrative where you're pushing papers, and then you have to carve out that time at the end of the day, the beginning of the day. So trying to look for those more natural opportunities, and so still trying to fit it in, but at least it's something. But thinking about what are those opportunities to get up and move in between what we're doing.
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
if it's walking the stairs or.
I know. I hate stairs, but he makes me do them. Yeah.
I actually worked with some Adventists, which they're known for their blue zones.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of walking meetings.
Like that idea.
So
I love that.
Plus, we live in these great states that we have sunshine. So.
Yeah, I like that idea. Can you take a meeting and can you make it outside? A ski meeting. You're stuck on a chairlift. That can be your meeting time. Yeah.
I had a clinical instructor that would do these walk-in talks, so we would debrief at the end of the day. We'd do a walk around the whole VA hospital, and we'd literally go and touch the opposite wall on the opposite side of the hospital, and we'd be hoofing it too.
I love it.
It's hard to have a conversation with you. That's what we did.
Yeah, I like that. Can we do that more?
I think we live in a sense of urgency in our communities, so it's always like we gotta hurry and do things, whereas why don't we take time to say, hey, let's, instead of taking the elevator, let's take the stairs.
Yeah.
Why am I parking in the front of a parking lot? Why don't I park in the back and walk? Like, we could do it if we didn't have such a sense of urgency. We just need to I feel like these communities, they're more relaxed.
Yes.
Taking the time for movement, whereas we don't want to take the time for it.
Yes. Yeah. I love that comment. What are the barriers? Medicine it feels like you're always kind of going, trying to get to the next patient, but can we slow things down a little bit?
I think that integrating it into the culture is a big thing. Because, 10 years ago, the person with the stand-up desk was the anomaly. And now it's so much more of the norm. And when people, start doing and changing their habits, and it becomes the norm, everybody else wants to do it, and it just starts to get into society.
Yeah, peer pressure.
These guys have really cracked the code on that.
Yeah, I love that. Positive peer pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Yeah.
So looking at some of their diet elements that you brought up, those are the things that I teach people all the time.
Yeah.
And try to follow, but don't always do super awesome myself. But it's one of those kind of things that maybe we think about making more of a, hey, this is just how we are living and how we are choosing, and sharing that with others. And if we're reinforcing it in ourselves by sharing it with other people,
yeah,
it kind of pushes us to do a little bit better ourselves.
Yeah.
So you don't have that feel like a hypocrite.
Yeah, love that.
I don't know that this is natural movement, it's a little artificial movement, but I had a bunch of sons and they were all trying to learn how to do pull-ups, so we had a pull-up bar in the basement, and so I taught them the grease the groove method of every time you go past a pull-up bar, just do one.
Yep.
And then eventually they got to 2, and if you can do 2, you can do 3, and on and on. But and you've been to parks where they have those walking circuits where it's like do 10 push-ups here.
Yeah.
Here. We should make the hospital like that. We should just have like a
yes. Now we're getting somewhere.
Every time you pass this, like, do 10 squats or something.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. So on that. Yeah. The boys at Synergy challenged us in, I want to say February, January, to a push-up contest, and I hate push-ups, so I wanted to do pull-ups instead, and then I requested that Dr. Edwards get a pull-up bar in our office, and where's biceps? Tyler over there, still cranking out like 5 pull-ups between every patient, right? It's those little things, they add up.
Yeah.
I think on that end, what was it? I think Tyler said at a conference, maybe, we have to be buying what we're selling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, I think that as we find ourselves slowing down from maybe more running around in clinical to more admin work, we have to try and do this. And I had a management role at one of my last jobs. We had a 6,000 square foot facility, and I would always print to basically Dry Creek's office. Had a printer up front, and I would have to walk all the way because it's the only time I get my butt out of the chair.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same thing that we have to talk to our patients about. Like, not only is it us, but it's, you know, can we help them get more mindful where they can move just a little bit more, and what are our strategies for doing that?
Yeah.
Like, how do we instill that in them? And those are just small conversations. Do they eat better? Do they move better? Can they feel better?
Yeah.
Eat better, move better, feel better. Wait,
And you
that's
kind
good.
of build it into
So-
your life. Love
but,
it.
Yeah.
I always thought that as a working nurse on the floor, that my 30-minute lunch break was kind of weird, because I was like, I'm running all the time, and then I have 30 minutes to, and you don't really have 30 minutes to go and sit and eat. But the moments that I changed something during my clinicals for nurse practitioner, I would go out and I'd go and walk outside. And I would just get away from my workplace for a few moments and just walk for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I could go back in so much more rejuvenated to actually see patients because I took the time for myself outside.
Yeah, that kind of ties into two of those. You're de-stressing a little bit, building some de-stress time in, and
I wanna
getting
throw
some movement in.
A good thing out to Synergy, and my nephew works for Synergy, and they laugh because during his lunch break he goes fishing. But they have a long lunch break for their employees in between appointments.
Yeah.
And I think it actually, I mean, just if I could go fishing during my lunch break.
I know.
But I think it's
Speak
actually
louder, my boss is listening.
I think it's a really good thing because it lets your employees get away from the workplace, and then they come back more rejuvenated.
Yeah. A lot of these communities, they would go home and take a nap at lunch. Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said for, if we see this in therapy with, I guess, pathologies and other things, there'll be nurses that'll come in with back pain and other things that can benefit from movement. There's accommodated movement. We become very accustomed to the grind that we go through, and it's only when we step outside or go to a different environment that aerobic conditioning or that conditioning becomes a bit more helpful for us.
Yes.
We'll see it, people like line workers or you know, the stocking, restocking. They do that all the day. They lift every single second of the day, but they still have a pathology, and it doesn't change or get better until you take them out of that continuous movement.
Out of the mindless, yeah.
Like, it's not like you say natural movement in our workplace, but it'd be more for like mindful movement or places where we unload.
Yes.
From the daily grind.
Yeah,
So it's
and change the
movement.
pace a little
Yeah,
bit.
change, and that can create better circulation if that's what our goal is, or the healing that we need.
Yeah.
It's going to be stepping outside of that.
Yeah, I'll often ask patients, you know, what do you do for movement? And they're like, well, I'm a nurse, or I work in a facility, and so I'm lifting and walking all day. But it's that consistent movement, and it's kind of mindless.
Go fishing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Go fishing.
It dawned on me that a lot of these places don't have very good medical care.
Yeah, that's true. They
We
don't have.
We put out flyers all the time.
Or
and
medical.
That's our orientation of our medical system is to be fire trucks.
Yeah. That's a great point. I didn't think about that at all.
Are we inventing problems to solve?
Yeah, like, our medical system is react.
A very reactive system.
They've
Oh.
been treated and prevented.
All right, we got a few minutes. We're going to move on to food. How can we reinvent the wheel to encourage healthier meals in our workplace? So that 80% concept, the plant slants, being more connected to what we're eating. This one's hard. We don't have a lot of control of what people choose to eat. I would choose donuts every day if I could. But how do we change this culture? Yeah.
Well, I think a garden, I mean, not that you can live year-round on a garden, but it just focuses you on how things grow, what it takes to make things grow, and makes you appreciate when something does grow the way it is.
Absolutely, and it tastes way better. If you find the key
tomatoes,
to,
of course, out of a garden are
Yeah.
different than what you get in the store.
if you figure out how to successfully garden in Utah, let me know. It was a lot easier when I lived in Oregon.
It's not that hard.
What else?
It's just a short season.
Yeah, and how do we do this? You know, is there a workplace garden? Is that something that could change? Can we build those sorts of things into our communities and really reinvent that wheel?
So I previously worked for Intermountain, and a couple of times I got tasked with going up to Park City to work in that facility up there, and they told us all Intermountain facilities are the same, you know, and I got to the Park City one, and they had their chef, they had their own garden outside where every herb and fresh vegetable was being grown by
That's
by
amazing.
plant people, and then it was all fresh in the cafeteria every day, and I'm like, why can't we have this in Provo?
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
I don't know if we're gonna start a garden on the back 40 here, but
Yeah, just ideas for Mountain Point. Anything else? Yeah.
One thing that sometimes helps is when you're planning your meal, mostly people plan around the meat or the starch that they're having, and then they build around that. You
Yeah.
Start with the vegetables, and then
Build
put
from
that as the centerpiece.
I like that. I love that. Okay.
So a question to go along with that. This doesn't pertain to me. I love vegetables, but there are a lot of people who have grown up not liking vegetables. So how do we get to that what was it that you said, the
Plant slant. 80% plant slant. Sorry.
How do you change that mindset to get those individuals that have grown up in a house where vegetables haven't been for you? You can't leave the table until your broccoli's done, type of thing. So
That is a great.
how do you that's the main barrier that I would see from that.
Really? Yeah. I had a teammate who hadn't eaten a vegetable in like 15 years. Yeah.
You have to marry someone that eats vegetables. I grew up in that household. There are vegetables that I had never had before.
Yeah.
It was like, here's this, and I was like, what is this?
That's colorful.
Edible. And opened my eyes to a whole new world of vegetables
Yeah.
that
I like that.
hadn't had before.
I love that. I will start them with smoothies. I like sneak some vegetables into their smoothies. Works well.
There's always cheese sauce.
What? Cheese?
Cheese sauce. Cheese sauce. Put cheese on top.
Oh. I love it. Cheese does make everything better.
Processed nacho cheese.
No.
Some of that comes down to availability. When my kids started being able to drive, they would go and get fast foods things.
Yep.
And then they don't want to eat the meal that's cooked at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody delivers crumble cookie to your office, maybe you're not as interested in eating a healthy meal that day, or the vegetables don't seem as appealing compared to what's in a crumble cookie.
Yeah.
And so some of it's, I think, food tastes great when you're hungry, and it can be really satisfying when it's healthy and you're hungry. But if you never have a chance to be hungry or don't have the time to eat something healthy, then you end up just eating stuff that's not that satisfying, but available and easy and quick.
Yeah. Yeah. So send us vegetables instead of crumble cookies. Yeah.
That's a little excessive.
that's an old Italian saying though. The best sauce is hunger.
Yeah.
I like that.
Nothing tastes better.
Yeah, Alex?
I think anymore we're not actually hungry either.
Yes.
It's ingrained into our routines that the time hits, oh, this is when I'm supposed to eat, and your brain tells you, I need to eat and I'm hungry. But actually, if you were just if you were to just distract yourself for a minute, you would find out that you're not actually hungry, because there are people in the world who are actually hungry.
Yeah.
I don't think here in our culture, at least in our country, we probably don't really know what hunger is.
Yeah.
So I think trying to push yourself into actually experience what hunger really is.
Yeah, and if you only fill yourself up 80%, that will help. Anything else? Yeah.
If you think you're hungry, try a glass of water first.
Ooh.
And then decide if you're actually hungry or if you're just thirsty, because it's really hard sometimes to tell the difference.
Yeah, I love that advice. What time am I supposed to end? I don't even know. Let's spend 2 minutes on this one. How can we downshift in our workplaces better? Are we building time? Oh, not that one. Oh, there we go. How can we build time for our employees and for ourselves to downshift from time to time and de-stress? You only got 2 minutes, so.
I'm gonna prioritize.
Yeah.
Is it the almighty dollar, or is it employee wellness, work-life balance?
Yeah.
It's like what's important. They're all
Love it.
important.
You're seeing it right here. You're living it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a pretty unusual space for people to come and be a community and downshift. Carson?
We, our office manager hung up some of those big coloring pages on the wall in our office. And when you get done with a rough patient, walk over, there's a box of coloring pages, and we literally colored on this wall of coloring board.
I like that.
Some people spend more time on it than others.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly important, but in medicine, that's an incredibly hard societal change.
Yeah.
Because it's get your notes done, get your notes done, get your notes done. I work with a very wonderful provider, Dr. Ancha.
That's right.
And she's fantastic, but she never gets her notes done. Let's be honest. And it stresses her out, and she has to spend all that extra time getting those notes done. And she's not the only one. There are hundreds of thousands of providers out there that are in the same situation where they spend time with their patients, they do what's supposed to be done in terms of taking care of the patient, not the problem, but then it leaves them no time to do their work, so they have to take their work home, and so
lunch
they
or
have
home.
that downshifting time. There has to be a societal change in order to really bring that in. Now, can Mountain Point do that to where there's less stress on the RVU possibly? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing any shade or anything like that. I love common spirit, just saying. But it's just that is the atmosphere that we are in.
Yeah.
This has to be done in order to get your paycheck.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And then people are charting instead of eating their lunch and being mindful of their meals. Yeah.
So someone already said it, but prioritizing.
Yes.
We like calendar everything in our lives, right? So
Yep.
how often do we calendar just
Downtime.
I don't. But thinking about this, I think, why not?
Yeah.
Because we are such a driven society anyway, and if all of a sudden, just like being at rounds is a priority, that your downtime in the afternoon and it's sacred and nobody gets to schedule over it and you get to do whatever that means.
I like that. It's your sacred time.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, Mexico's got that kind of figured out. It's called a siesta.
Yes. Yeah, a couple of these groups had a siesta as well. All right. Well, I think that's time, but there are some references. They'll be on the app. Go look at the app because I know you want to know the references. I appreciate you guys all being here today, and I hope you can take one or two things and try to implement it at your workplace. Thanks.